The year was 2014. Most of the world was barely half a decade out of the great financial crisis, and US inflation was next to non existent. Interest rates were low, and the currency was fairly weak. Around this time, I was but a few years into watch collecting and decided to take advantage of prevailing conditions by making my first major acquisition, this Jaeger LeCoultre Reverso Grande GMT. Quite a mouthful, from the mid 2000s. I've had it for roughly a decade now. How did it hold up? Let's jump into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Join me today as we take a closer look at the JLC Reverso Grande GMT, which, in my opinion, is the best reversal timepiece for travel. As usual, I'll walk us through all little details on the watch case, dials, and movement before heading off to my ownership experience and issues encountered. I often do an unboxing at the start of these videos. Unfortunately, this watch is one of the few I own that does not have its original paperwork enclosed. All I can show you guys today are these outer and inner boxes, the original JLC strap, which is pretty much disintegrating on its own, and some service paperwork, which I'll talk about later. With that aside, we can jump straight to the watch case. The case of this watch features the traditional Reverso rectangular profile, albeit a little wider, taller, and thicker to house the 8-day movement inside. Without the crown or pushers, it's 29mm wide. With the pushers, that figure increases to 30.5mm before topping out at 32mm crown inclusive. Without the lugs, this Reverso is 39mm long. With them, it's 46.5mm. The crystals on both dial faces sit flush with the watch case, making the rotating module almost 11mm thick. At the rear bridge, and the total thickness closes out at around 12mm. Here's a quick shot on my 6-inch wrist. Finally, lug width sits at 20mm and the single fold deployant takes straps in at 18mm. Jaeger LeCoultre loves to draw parallels with the golden ratio when they talk about the Reverso's dimensions in marketing materials. Nerding out a little here, that ratio is around 1.618 and has interested people since the 5th century BC, possibly earlier. Objects supposedly look most pleasing when done in this ratio. The aspects that get to this ratio the closest are the 46.5mm lug-inclusive length and the 29mm width, yielding a ratio of 1.603. 3 engraved lines each on the upper and lower edges of the rotating module run its entire perimeter and flank the crystals and dials on both sides. They provide a nice little touch of character and help draw the viewer's eyes to the dials, which we will now cover. At first glance, the dial on this Reverso seems simple, monotonous even. Just a plain white rectangle, some Arabic numerals, and blued sword hands. Look closer and you realize that it's quite the sleeper. What seems like a solid white surface turns into 2 distinct sections as light dances from different angles. The outer section of the dial with very subtle vertical brushing is done in some sort of pearl white or silver that allows it to take on white and gray shades as you move the watch around. Arabic numerals surround the perimeter of the seemingly flat outer section, and tiny knurls in a single file close it out where it meets the watch case. The inner section of the dial doesn't have pearl metallic treatment, yet it manages to play with light just the same. Engraved over a Côte de Genève-like treatment, a wave pattern allows it to look lighter and darker than the outer dial from various angles. Railway track minute markers separate the 2 dial sections, with the railways themselves engraved into the dial surface. We have very simple branding here, Jaeger LeCoultre logo and type close to 12 o'clock, and extremely tiny Swiss-made below 6. As mentioned earlier, all the hands on this side of the watch are blued, including the seconds hand on the subdial at 4:30, debossed ever so slightly from surface level. Big date windows sit at about 6:30. Each digit on the date is represented by a separate disc, and let me show you guys here. Watching them switch over is really fascinating. Unfortunately, we don't get to see this too often. Rounding out the features on the front dial is a day and night indicator around 2 o'clock. It's lovely to look at with the sun done in reflective gold. The half moon opening of this indicator is labeled day and night in French, itself surrounded once again by twin engraving. Honestly, this complication hasn't been of much use to me other than to tell whether it's safe to change the date or not. Still, it's nice to have. You might be wondering what the pushers on the side of the case are for. Now that we're done with the fancy side of this watch, let's flip it over to the business side. Before we get started with the sub-dials and all the travel functions on this watch, one word stands out when we try to make sense of the texture: vinyl. A rough vinyl texture reminiscent of guitar and violin cases dominates the surface of the rear face. Rings with fine concentric brushing, akin to vinyl records, on all dials break this monotony. Once again, the Jaeger LeCoultre logo and type makes an appearance at 12 o'clock and Swiss made at the bottom. The movement used in this Reverso is Jaeger LeCoultre's in-house caliber 878. Its twin barrels provide a generous 8 days of runtime, reflected by this power reserve indicator at 130. Loomed sword hands in a sharper profile than those on the front dial dominate this side of the Reverso. The main dial here shows local time, which we can jump forward and backward in 1 hour increments using the pushers on the side of the watch case. And as we do that, you can see the 2 sub-dials following suit. The one at 5 o'clock is yet another day and night indicator for local time. Instead of sun and stars, you get a hand pointing on a 24-hour dial instead. The sub-dial at 7 o'clock is very useful to me. You can see that it's pointing to GMT +8, and that's because I'm in Asia. As you press on the pushers to sync up with local time after traveling to your destination, the pointer on the sub-dial moves along to indicate your local time zone. But there's another way to use this sub-dial. Let's set it back to local time first. Now, instead of having it show the current time zone, you can set it to read 0 at home time using the pusher on the bottom of the rotating module. Let's go do that. Set this way, the sub-dial will now read out how far forward or backward you are from home time whenever you travel to a new destination and for some reason only have access to local time. These time zone and travel features make this Reverso Grande GMT one of the most useful ones out there. 9 years of ownership. How has it been? Before we head there, please do hit those like and subscribe buttons down there if you're enjoying this video so far. I'm trying to grow my subscriber count and will really appreciate all the help I can get. Now back to the watch. The flat lug pieces on the top and bottom are pretty scratch prone. You can almost scratch them just by staring at them. Since the rest of the watch is curved, scratches on these parts aren't as apparent. Do some research on the history of the Reverso and you'd always come across the story of how a group of British Army officers requested a Swiss businessman to come up with a watch that could survive the rigors of a polo match. One could argue that the Reverso that resulted from this endeavor was the original sport watch. So, being the smarty pants that I am and figuring that golf was essentially polo without horses, I golfed the whole season with the Reverso on my wrist. The good news? The movement's shock protection was enough to keep it in working condition. The bad? Day-to-day accuracy suffered, jumping from 4 seconds slow to 4 seconds fast and anywhere in between. Off the service it went. Speaking of service, I encountered a lot of issues with Jaeger LeCoultre's designated service center here in the Philippines, which I'll probably cover in a future video. But Richmond Singapore Service Center was able to bring the Reverso back to full functionality for much less trouble and money. Earlier in this video, I mentioned that Jaeger LeCoultre officially quotes 8 days of power reserve for this movement. Since I got it back from Richmond Service Center a few years ago and until now, I get a day and a half more runtime from it after the power reserve indicator shows depletion, bringing its unofficial anecdotal power reserve to almost 10 days. And travel. At the start of this video, I said that this Reverso Grande GMT is in my opinion the best Reverso for travel. Nothing beats jumping the hour hand on the back dial forward and backward in 1 hour increments without the need to pull the crown all the way out and move the minute hand. Depending on how you set it, you can have the hour delta sub-dial remind you of your present time zone or how far ahead or behind you are from home. And if you do have to know what time it is back home, it's always fun to briefly flip the reverso's front dial over before flipping it back down again. Simple arithmetic can take a back seat. And that's it for today's video. If you want to see more of these ownership reviews or maybe even watch how to remove this flipping mechanism from the case frame in the future, please do consider subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Oh, and one last thing. Remember that thing about golf involving fewer horses than polo? Volkswagen seems to have gotten this the wrong way around. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.